So this one will be December 7th.
December 7th. So is that
1941.
I know. A day
that will live
in infamy.
In infamy.
I think we need... How appropriate is this? We're doing a battle on Pearl Harbor Day. That's perfect.
Are we recording?
Damn.
Oh, you're so great.
Hey, Will, welcome to the Ransomed Heart podcast. Glad you could drop in on our conversation today. We were just going through the calendar trying to figure out, okay, where are we and when does this air? And it is like doing a radio show in terms of, sitting here at the microphones and you sitting there listening. And
And we figured out it's December 7th. This is big.
Pearl Harbor Day.
Yeah.
That explains the bells ringing in the background. And the stockings and the Yuletide log burning.
I'm thinking Pearl Harbor. Wait, what are we doing?
What
bells are ringing?
What is he talking about?
Oh!
Stockings.
I'd just like to make something clear that Craig's family is visiting. His young granddaughters are in town. And distraction might be...
Distraction of the very best kind. They are adorable.
Just spent the day at the mall. Pearl Harbor wasn't on my mind. It was trying to keep the kids from getting in that long line to see Santa.
That's right. And I haven't had my coffee yet. I'm midstream, so, I'm coming awake here.
Here we go. So by the end of this conversation, Stacey's going to be amazing.
I'll talk really fast.
And so will I.
Looks like I'm carrying this one. I was breaking agreements about that this morning.
You're not carrying it. Jesus.
Speaking of agreements, we've been walking through just a number of conversations surrounding marriage, but with the hope and the confidence that wherever you are, relationally, single, married, divorced, widowed, this is all very relevant because we're dealing with people all the time, every day. So hoping that this is proving to be a help and an encouragement to you. But I was serious. I was breaking agreements this morning. And just in my, it was just my time with God in the morning. And I was going through what I normally do, which is the daily prayer, but found myself journaling a little bit on some episodes the last couple of days. People, no one in the current situation.
no one in the room.
Yeah, no one.
Big sigh of relief.
I think he was actually talking to you.
But people driving me crazy and disappointing, frustrating, exasperating situations I have been in. And all of that stirs in the not yet fully holy, not yet fully healed human soul. And just found myself needing to pause this morning, put it down, pray about it, invite Jesus into it. And which brings us to today's conversation. As we've been talking about marriage, what we've been doing is moving through some of the themes that Stacey and I address in Love and War, which is the new book that comes out in just 2 weeks, or just a
week.
A week.
Yeah.
From now next week on the 15th. So excited about this book. We really think it's going to bring a lot of healing. Anyway, brings us today to the topic of agreements and the enemy overall. Just recognizing that your marriage has an enemy. And it's not your spouse.
Stacey just got up to turn down the lights.
It's a little bright in here. I'm starting to get hot.
Isn't it warm?
Oh,
no,
my
it's
goodness.
good that there was a pause at that, because just to say, hey, there is an enemy. It isn't your spouse. Because sometimes it feels like they are the enemy. If they would just get their act together, things would be so much better. When in fact, you look in the mirror, there's another act that needs getting together. But there is an enemy that is opposed to our marriages having life and love. And when we awake to that, it changes everything.
Isn't anything that was intended or designed by God to be such a source of joy and hope and love and intimacy, just kind of on the top of the enemy's list to attack and,
Yes.
and to go after?
Yeah, and marriage being so important, so close to the heart of God, it's right in the crosshairs. So,
Okay, now the obvious stuff is affairs, divorce, violence, bad things, big
horrible
things, right? But hang on, time out. That's actually not what we're talking about for the most part. When things, I'm asking you to, when things get tense, rough, whatever, at home, does your first thought go to, oh, clearly the enemy's involved here?
sadly, no. Where still my first thought goes is, I did something wrong. I think it must be me. When in fact, that isn't even the majority of the cases. So no, I don't go there first. What about you, Craig?
Sadly, I go to, she did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm looking for someone to blame, something that can be fixed.
Yes.
Needs to be fixed.
Yes.
Yep. Right. I just wanted to point that out because I know that's true for our listeners that, when things are hard in relationship or disappointing, when someone misses you, they say something that hurts or they're not saying anything to you lately, is your first analysis some aspect of the enemy in here? Our first thought doesn't include the enemy, and that is such a naive and dangerous way to live. I know that this is true for our listeners, that when things go bad, when somebody says something hurtful, somebody doesn't say anything at all. Years of marriage counseling, couple after couple, and the category of what might Satan be doing in this, his minions, the kingdom of darkness, what role might they be playing in this? Mm-hmm. You get, okay, so here's a whopper of a story. A couple years ago, I was counseling a married couple, and this guy, 15 years of a very disappointing marriage, and this guy tells me, I married the wrong woman. And I said, well, how do you know that? And he said, God told me. And I'm like, I'm just, I'm not cracking up in the moment. I'm thinking, what are you talking about? I said, really? When did that happen? And he said, on my wedding night. He said, on my wedding night, it came to me absolutely clearly. You made a mistake. You disobeyed me. You married the wrong woman. He made an agreement with that. Mm-hmm. And it defined the way that he experienced his wife. It defined the way he experienced all of the normal hardships, awkwardnesses, disappointments of a marriage.
Yes.
And 2 years ago, they divorced. And the category, I introduced the idea to him, this is before the divorce, as it was coming. I said, did it occur to you that thought did not come from God, that wasn't even your own, negative opinion, that was from hell. Yeah. That was from the enemy. He looked at me like a frog looks at you. Just that blank, kind of vacant expression. Just nothing. Dear friends, please, come on. The enemy is not the source of all your sorrows. The enemy is not the source of all the difficulty in your relationships. However, you can guarantee he's there, ready to throw gas on the fire, right? Egg it on, put his spin, his interpretation on things within the relationship.
Gosh, just this weekend, I got so convicted by God of just what an unloving man I am, and how somewhere over these last seasons, I'd shifted. I'd made some agreement that my needs and desires and hopes and dreams were the most important thing. And, these agreements we make, John and Stacy, are just so subtle.
Yes.
And seem so minor. But then you get smacked in the face somewhere down the road with, oh my gosh, what's the source of this? And you realize somewhere it's probably been a year or two, or I don't know how long. I just kind of gave way, made agreements about how about me in relationships? How about me in life, and particularly in marriage? How about me? And just agreeing that I'm more important than Lori, and my needs are more important than hers. And in fact, she's kind of not cooperating much with me, and just feeling the frustration, the paralysis, and the making all those agreements brings. So, yeah.
The fruit, knowing them by the fruit. But then they're right about the subtlety of them, because you can live with them for so long and not know, because it feels true, seems to be true. And then, I don't know how it was for you, Craig, but you have to get with God. You have to at least ask him the question.
Break those agreements.
Yeah, am I making agreements? What are they? And then break them. That is not true.
And when you see those agreements, they're so ugly. You wonder, how did I agree with that? But somewhere along the line, it was appealing, attractive, and it made sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're teaching on this very subject to a group of married couples. And I'm teaching along on, look, the enemy's there. Of course he wants to ruin love. Of course he wants to ruin any relationship. Are you kidding me? Look at the garden.
Right.
It's the very first thing that happens. He comes in between them and ends up separating them and separating them from God.
Yeah,
right?
by having her make an agreement with him.
Right.
Just making his spin.
Oh, and then they start accusing each other, right? Adam says, it's the woman that you gave me. She's the source of this. But I'm teaching along in this, and I'm thinking, I don't think so. Stace and I are pretty current in our marriage. We don't let the list get long. We talk about things that need to be talked about, and we're both doing our best to walk with God. But I was leading the group in an exercise, and I said, I want you to pause, and I want you to listen. And I want you to ask Christ, what are the agreements that you have been making about your marriage? In particular, what are the agreements that you have been making against your spouse? And I'm like, well, okay, they're doing the exercise. I might as well do it. And so I was surprised at, bam, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, just immediately, boom, what I heard was, it's too much work. And I thought, oh, dear Lord, how long have I been making that agreement? And what is the effect of making that agreement? Well, you check out a little. You tone down. You don't offer as much. You don't engage as much. And I just thought, oh, Jesus, forgive me for letting that come into our relationship. So these don't have to be whoppers, gang. I mean, the agreements that you can be making, he never understands. She doesn't really care.
Right.
He'll never change. Agreements like that.
Or I'll never change.
Or I'll never change.
The hopelessness factor. Whenever that rears its head, that's a clue.
We've peaked. This is as good as it gets. Don't expect much.
Don't rock the boat, right? Settle for what you've got. Or then the more obvious and dangerous ones, you'd be happier with someone else. And then how that begins to work its way in, and you let that, or I married the wrong person, right? That guy's agreement. I actually have met many people who have made that agreement. And friends, do you see how this gets in? Yes, there's a real event. Maybe there's a shout. Maybe, they forget your birthday. Maybe they totally mess up a situation that you were counting on, a family vacation, dealing with the kids, something. But what goes through your heart and your mind afterwards? Where do you go with that? And heads up to the enemy's right there egging on some kind of agreement against marriage, against your spouse or yourself against the relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's the scriptures about standing firm, and I just kind of like say, do you have to break it just once? You recognize it, you say, that's not true. I break agreements with that. And then tell yourself what is true. You might have to do it again.
And again. And again. I mean, if some of these are historic, I mean, if these are rooted in old wounds, if these are rooted in the old parts of the story, oh my goodness, this is going to require some tenacity on your part. But the fruit is just hugely worth it.
Yes.
I think on the ones that are coming, like the immediate ones, I think it is right then. And you can experience that,
Yes.
Of, doggone it, there she goes again. Nope. Wait, hang on, time out. I'm not giving way to that. I'm not giving place to that. And 5 minutes later, suddenly I have my joy back.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be this huge thing, but man, if they're historic, oh my goodness. Agreements you made on your honeymoon, right?
So, John, for most of us in our marriages, what we experience day in and day out is a range of emotions, either frustration, disappointment, joy, so on and so forth. How do we know whether to explore something? Is this an agreement? Do our emotions tip us off here? I mean, are emotions kind of an idiot light on the dashboard that something's going on?
Good question.
Jesus said, you shall know them by their fruit. And to be honest, if I'm not experiencing love and joy and peace and patience, kindness, gentleness, the fruits of the Holy Spirit anywhere in my life, not just in my marriage, but if I suddenly find myself incredibly discouraged, if I find myself giving way to resignation, pardon the expression, but F it, if I find myself suddenly angry or whatever, that doesn't feel like Jesus, yes, you explore that. Time out. Hang on. What's going on here?
What's that about?
Jesus, what is going on here? Come and show me.
That's good.
And I think what would be really, 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 really huge, friends, in the next couple of days, pause and ask Jesus, Lord, what are the agreements that I have been making against my marriage or about my marriage, about love, about intimacy, about sex? Right? Lord, show me the agreements that I'm making. And then as God reveals that to you, break them.
Yes.
Meaning, I reject this. I break the agreement I've been making with this. It's important that you do it out loud. I reject this. No, it's not too much work. No, I reject the agreement that things will never change. I reject that. God is the God of all hope. Whatever it is, you deliberately, intentionally reject it, break covenant with it, so that the love and the life and the light of God can come in to your own heart and in to the relationship. And can we just make a heads-up note here, gang? Okay, the holidays are rapidly approaching. Yes, a time for joy, but also, in our experience, a time of a lot of pressure and exhaustion and frayed nerves, right? And burning the candle at both ends and disappointments and, all of this whole idea of the enemy getting into your relationship, agreements playing themselves out. Oh, my goodness. It might rescue your Christmas. Seriously. This conversation may rescue your holidays. We're so grateful that you are listening in to the Ransomed Heart podcast. Again, I'm John Eldredge, and it's just such a joy and an honor to be able to share our thoughts with you and the things that God is teaching us. The book that we've been talking about is Love and War, Finding the Marriage You Dreamed Of. Stasi and I wrote that together, and that comes out next week. We're also going on tour, Stasi and I, in January and February, and all kinds of great things going on. So come to loveandwar.net. for more on the book and to read some of it, to place an order, to get your tickets for the tour, and just to find out more of what's going on that right now. And join us next time on our podcast. We love being with you.